Holbrook New Media.
This is Jeffrey K. Holbrook. Welcome to the audio feed from holbrooknewmedia.com. Today, Geoff and Jeffrey, the weekly catch-up. We hope you enjoy the audio version. If you want to see what we look like, I will embed the video for this episode at holbrooknewmedia.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Geoff Blanchard.
And I'm Jeffrey K. Holbrook, and this is the weekly catch-up.
And we're back, so good morning, Mr. Holbrook.
Good morning to you, sir. How are things down there?
Yes, evening. It is evening.
Yes, it is evening, and like I say, for me, it is morning.
Yes. Coming to the next week we'll be going into spring, so that's good. Out of winter and into spring next week. So,
congratulations! We're like I say, in September. We're getting ready to turn into September, and it will be fall for us in September. So that's kind of cool.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to some nicer, warmer weather. But hey, we haven't had it too bad anyway. You can't grumble and moan when those poor people in Texas, in Houston, all the trouble had down that part of the country. So you just thank your lucky stars that you just can moan about how miserable and cold it is, rather than the flooding and the hurricane there. It's just been shocking, hasn't it? Well, the trouble that they've had down there.
Yes, it is. It is devastating. I had a friend from England I wished her happy birthday, and she was saying just how awful. I mean, and the thing is, though, the fact that the news spreads around the world. I mean, you can see this all around the world, and everybody gets to share it, even in spite of the fact that it's a local phenomenon. All of a sudden, everybody all around the world can see what's happening, and it's really disturbing to a lot of people. It really is.
Well, what really gets me though is America is just such a big place that something that's bad as that's happening on that side of the country. On the other side, there's just nothing. It's really nice weather, and you just can't believe in California. It's sunny, quite warm, and then they've got these devastating weather on the other side. I know I've been there before and been in California, and when Sandy was there, I think so. I was there, and that side perfectly lovely weather, but on the other end, there was floods and hurricanes in New York. So, because that was a hurricane, wasn't it? Yes.
Yeah, like you say, we're unaffected. A lot of times, since we're on the eastern side of the country, a hurricane will come into the Gulf, go through Texas, Louisiana, or something like that, and penetrate far enough inland that whenever it shoots back to the east, like it has to because of the rotation of the Earth, then it brings us weather. We end up with a lot of rain and stuff like that. And so this one, I understand we're supposed to rain for the next 2 or 3 days, but I'm not sure if it's a remnant of that or not. This one just kind of hung around down there for a while and just caused all kinds of trouble and rain and flooding. And I mean, I'm not even sure if it made it very far north enough to come by and give us any rain from it, but it's just a devastating thing.
And that's the thing. It's not so much the hurricane that's done the damage. It's just that it's sticking around in the rain. It's just the deluge of rain that's caused all the problems, isn't it? Like the hurricane, like they always do, cause a lot of damage, but they usually blow in and blow out, and people can get on with it. But this one's just kept raining and flooding everywhere. So it's been shocking. So my hat goes out to all those people down there. So
Definitely. One of the things that, we've talked about before on the show, I've told you that at some point, I plan on closer to retirement that I would like to go ahead and get another, digital SLR of some type, or, just so I can get into some more still photography and things like that. Well, I haven't got one yet, and actually the one I had was a Canon 30D, and back when my daughter was in college, I gave it to her with various lenses and things so she could use it in some of her, graphics work and things like that. That picture you see behind me on the other side, actually, that's one of the pictures she painted back in the day. But anyway,
yes, I could just see.
Yeah, just see the edge of it. But anyway, some of her graphic work. So I haven't had a digital SLR or anything of that caliber for a few years now. But I come across something the other day in preparation for that, and I couldn't pass it up. And have you ever heard of the LowePro company?
Yes, I've heard of them.
They make fancy bags for professionals for their cameras and stuff. Anyway, I got one.
Oh,
I mean, like you said, I don't even have a camera for it yet, but whatever it is going to fit. This one is the Transit Sling 250 AW, which AW means all weather. So it has has an extra thing you can pull over top of it to make absolutely sure that it doesn't get wet if it does start to rain. And instead of an actual backpack, it just has a sling. So it's around your back like a backpack, but then you just swing it around like that. And then this compartment, when you bring it around, comes up. You can see that. And it's like a quick draw for your camera. Pull it right out. You swing it around, it comes out from under your arm, you pull out your camera, and you're ready for your shoot, whatever you're going to do. And so I checked online, and this particular model is still available. It is $110. Let me get the front of it open here, and you can see some different compartments and some different things. Have a big thing up in the top. There you go. It comes apart. Now, this is completely reconfigurable however you decide you want to do it. You can do lenses, and you got your top compartment. Over here, you can mount you can just carry a small tripod attached to it. And it's got the little thing that pops out the bottom. So
yes,
you put the tripod in, so it goes below the bag as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
And so it's just, it's just over there on the actual side of it. But anyway, this is a really, really nice bag. And I'm kind of excited about it. It makes me want to get a camera now.
Well, funny thing you should say that, with you're getting all, I know exactly what you said because I've got the same bag.
You have the same bag?
Exactly the same bag. So that's what I thought. I know exactly how because it's one of my favorite ones because of that sling.
Mm-hmm.
You have whoosh it round and you use the bag as a stand. So It sits there and you can put your camera on, change the lenses and flick it back around the back, whereas you can just open that front. You can get easy access, whereas a proper backpack, you have to take it off and you can't do that. And how I came by it, because a friend had it, and a female friend, and those single straps are not very complimentary to women. They're not very good. So I'm not going to go any further, but I said, I understand. I'll buy it off you because I said it's good. It doesn't bother me, but it went really well. But I just love that because it's so solid, that single strap. Most people would think it might get a bit heavy, but it seems to, the way they've designed it, it's so evenly spread the weight that you don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do notice it's the only one I can actually have where I can quickly flip it round, take the camera out, put it in, do everything with, and then just put it back on flick it round without taking it off. But I just love that little the thing where you just open it up, get the camera out, and I've got the little the lenses in the sections like you had it there. So I've got two lenses in that, and that's why. So you said you had the Canon 30D. Well, I've got a camera that's twice as good as that one.
60.
It's called the 60D. Yes.
Okay. Now the 60D, the 60D was when they started doing video, right? Because I know the 30D, and I wasn't sure if the 50 or the 60D was when they started actually doing full video on them.
Well, the 60D was, but the 60D really was hopeless for video if you wanted it on the run, because the 60D was great video if you were sat up in a studio like this with it. You had the focus, because it wouldn't autofocus once you started recording.
Oh, okay. That's the way some of the little bridge cameras and things like we have are.
But this one, but after that, the 70D, it focuses while you're recording, whereas the other one, it would do an autofocus. But once you hit record, you couldn't change anything. You couldn't change settings or anything, whereas all the other ones, if you start recording, you can change the aperture, change everything if you wanted to while you're recording, whereas that one, you had to stop, change everything, change the focal length, then start recording again. And I did one little video filming myself, doing with a 3-stage with different cameras, and it's on my website, but it just looks awful because I just couldn't
get it right, because I stuck a teddy bear in the seat to try and get the focus and get the lighting right, but it still never worked out, because as a doing it yourself, it was just so hard to focus and do that. Whereas, yes, the autofocus, some people don't, but I like to have it when you're there, because if you move, you know you're always going to be in focus. It'll do a far better job than I could ever do in just setting up. No, but that bag you've got, that will do for nearly anything, because the 60D is quite a big camera compared to a lot of them, and just what I've got, the 24 to 105 lens, which is quite a big chunky lens on that. So I had that and the standard lens on there, so it's quite big enough for that. So, and most of the cameras, like you said, they won't be as big and heavy, but that's just really ideal for that. That's where the 60D lives at the moment. So.
Okay, so it has its own little place. Now, again, right now it's still available online. It says it was out of stock at LowePro. Now, I haven't checked anywhere else, but it said it was about $110. Well, guess how much I paid for it?
$62.50. $5
at a rummage sale.
Oh, rummage sale, because some people don't realize what they've got, do they? Sometimes.
Well, I mean, they also had a Canon regular bag. I didn't buy that because I have one very similar to it. It's a normal size thing, but it was a Canon brand bag, which I mean, again, a nice bag, but I have an off-brand, just like it. So I didn't really need that. I saw this. I don't have anything like this. And I'm like, oh, wow. And they had some various little pieces of luggage, things like that. At a rummage sale, they have this community area rummage sale. You go over there and everybody's got everything out on their driveways. And the point is to move the stuff and get it out of the house. And so you can find some amazing deals on things. And like you say, we probably, Dee Dee has a room downstairs that is going to be her project room, like this one is for me. And she wants to decorate it a certain way. And we pretty much decorated the whole room. We have enough to decorate the entire room, including a black iron floor lamp. And a whole bunch of decor that goes in a certain style that she wants. And we've probably got about $40 in all of that. But it's enough to decorate the entire room. And so, I mean, you'd be surprised. The point of, culturally, the point of a rummage sale, in this area at least, and again, some people, I guess, might just try to make big bucks off of things. But around here, the point is there are things in my house that people are willing to pay me small amounts of money to take away and get out of my way. And so it's not, you don't go in there and you see something that is, worth $100 and whatever. I mean, if they have an idea of what it's worth, you might pay $50 for $100 item, or you might pay $25 for, the point is, I don't need it. I don't want to go to the trouble of going on eBay and selling it. Please come and take my stuff and give me a little bit of money. I mean, that's what people expect.
Like you have, like we have. If you want to throw it out, it costs you more. It costs you quite a bit. We have a hard rubbish collection. We have once a year free that council provides. So, but outside that, you have to go to the tip, and the charge is $60, $70 to take a load down there. And so if somebody's going to take it, and I don't mind giving things away. Somebody else gets some good out of it. I'll like that. I don't like throwing things away, but as I said, I don't like selling on eBay, but I much prefer, and I'll usually find somebody says, well, do you want that? Like I did with my old TV, I didn't even think for a million years that anybody would want this old cathode ray tube TV. And so I didn't even ask around, because I thought it's just going down the tip. It will go in the hard rubbish collection. But somebody happened to hear me saying, what TV is it? And he says, that's one of the old cathode rays with flat screen, weighs a ton. Yeah. Oh, that's a great set for gaming. Oh. So, do you want it? I said, you and 500 people need to come around and get it.
Yeah, you bring the beef, you can take it away.
I was so happy that somebody could get, because I hate throwing things away. I thought because it still was working, but it's just old fashioned and it just was not suiting me, and I wanted to get rid of it. But just to know that it went to somebody who really wanted it for something, and they got it, whereas they would have paid something. But I said, I'm more than happy for you to do it. You're paying me by just taking it off my hands. And the TV had a matching stand, which I said, I'll keep that to put the new TV on. And so I'll put the new TV on that stand. But then after a while, I said to him, I said, what have you got that TV on? He said, oh, I haven't. It's on the floor still because it weighed a ton. I said, look, I'll get a cheap stand. And I said, I don't want you to be paying much for it. So I said, I'll get one $60 or $70. I found one $60 or $70. I said, you interested? You pay me buy that stand for me, and you can have the proper matching stand which supports all that weight. And he was more than happy to do that. So I said, but hey, I'll say $60. I said, whatever I pay on a stand, that's my problem. I said, but if you pay me $60 for the stand, and I found a stand for $99, but I said, all I want is a 60. He said, oh no. I said, well, no, I don't want that. I said, the whole point was, I don't want you to be paying more for it, but I was more than happy. It makes me feel really good when somebody gets the advantage out of things like that. And you said with the rummage sales, my mother's always been a good one for the rummage sales, and she's been since her early years a mad knitter, knitting jumpers, hats, all these sort of things. And when she knits jumpers, and people say, "Oh, how much did that cost?" and she might say $2.50, whereas other people say, "Oh, it cost me $80, $90 to knit that jumper." But what she does, all these people who go out and pay $80, $90 to get the wool to knit jumpers, that can't do it. They start knitting and lose interest, and it gets thrown in the cupboard. Then 10 years later, they've got all this wool, and I'll just get rid of it. And he goes to a rummage sale and says, "Oh, yeah, 50 cents for the whole lot," or something like that, just to get rid of it. So that's the only thing I miss these days is, 15, 20 years ago, there used to be a lot more in the rummage sales. Like we have what we call here the trash and treasure, which is you call your car boot sales or your boot sales or something like that. Okay. But now it's become so commercialized that the trash and treasure sales are just sort of like shops without throwing things on a travel mat.
And with all kinds of small Chinese gadgets, that then they try to resell. We always call those professional yard sailors, And so, but I'm serious. We can really do well. They haven't. I mean, there's a bunch of them around, and they have a tendency to set up tables and sell out of the back of trucks and things like that in open areas beside the road. Sometimes you'll see that. Certain areas you just expect everybody to gather. But whenever they have community yard sales, like a whole street will decide they're going to do it, or a whole small town will decide they're going to do it, and there might be 100 yard sales in a small area. And so you just go around looking for different things, and then you come across deals like this bag here. I mean, because that there just looked to me to be a very, very practical thing. And the more I read about it, I'm like, oh, well, isn't that something? I got a better deal than I initially thought I did. I just saw the bag, saw the brand name on it, knew that LowePro made really good stuff, and said, "Hey, how much do you want for this?" And they said, $5.
Oh,
I can keep a straight face. I got this. I got this.
I'll give you 4.
And so, and I had no idea how much it was at the time, but I suspected $100 or more. And so, I said, okay, so we got that. And, there's this look that my wife will give me sometimes. We'll see something and we'll ask them what the price is. She usually has me to do any kind of negotiating. You can actually negotiate sometimes. I didn't negotiate on this, but you can negotiate, and they'll say, I'll say, well, how much would you like for this? And they'll say $2, and she'll give me this look, and she'll say, "We want this." Okay. So then I buy it knowing that she will tell me later what that's really worth.
I had one of my visits early on to the States. A friend came with me, and it was in one of the markets in Los Angeles, and he saw this leather jacket that they were selling leather jackets there, and it was $99 or something, $99. And he went to buy it, and he was questioning the lady about the receipt, because he said, "Well, what's this?" "Well, it's tax. What do you expect it is? $9.90. And it's just, "Hey, don't you understand?" And she was really being mean and horrible about that. And I said, no, just leave it. Shush, that's fine. It's just. He said, "What?" I said, "No, just leave it." What the lady had done, she'd only charged him $9.90. on his credit card, not $9. And so I said, no, she's been, instead of $99, she just charged him $9.90. She'd done it wrong on the credit card machine, but because she figured it out eventually. And I said, well, she's been so horrible trying to, because he was quite being, what? I don't understand. What's this $9.90? Because all we could see, and she was saying it's 90. No, it's tax. It was whatever. Well, that just doesn't make sense. But some people just don't know when they've got a bag, and so I said, "Shh, there's a bag." And she charged your car. Quick, run! We don't live in this country. We can run away.
run while you still can before they catch you. I was looking at a leather jacket one time, and I always wanted a nice leather jacket, but we come across this place. They had bought some brand name Harley Davidson leather, for her husband with his motorcycle. And they had this, it wasn't Harley Davidson, but it was a really, really nice, whole setup for, even the chaps and everything in case the point of the leather is to protect you in case you, kind of pull the bike over and maybe go scooting on the pavement or something. But anyway, looking at this jacket, and it was just a phenomenal deal, and I thought it was cool. But then I couldn't buy it because the night before I had seen the movie Wild Hogs. Have you ever seen that?
The name sounds familiar.
It's about these old guys.
Yes.
That wanted to be young guy bikers, and they got all the gear. They looked good, and that was the most pathetic thing I'd ever seen. A bunch of old guys dressing up in leathers. And again, around here, the average motorcyclist is probably 50 years old. You see younger people, but you just see these people between 40 and 50, and they're doing it, and that's fine. But those guys on that movie looked so pathetic. They didn't know what they were doing. They were bumbling around. They had the gear. They looked good. It's just like when people here, they do hunting. And you can always tell the guys that walk straight out of a Cabela's magazine, those guys that have all the good stuff and the best looking guns and everything like that. They're not going to see anything. They don't know anything about hunting. They're just looking good. That's the way you look when you go hunting, and they do it. Well, these guys look so pathetic. I could not bring myself to buy that jacket. I don't even have a motorcycle or anything. I just couldn't buy that jacket because those guys look so pathetic. And, I just couldn't do it.
And like you said, there's nothing wrong with 40 and 50-year-olds riding bikes, but there is 40 or 50 years old people doing that when they've never ridden one before. Like you can tell the people straight away, they're just been riders and they just fit in. But you can tell, like you said, the people who've just gone and bought the things, and it's the first time they've jumped on a motorbike. A lot of it has to do with the confidence level. You can tell they don't have it, and they're swaggering, and they got that look at all that kind of stuff. It's just so sad. And the too perfect, all the things shiny, and that there's got to be a bit of grime on there. There's got to be not too shiny and all that. It's just got to fit in all nicely. But like you said, you can certainly pick them. It's like everything else you said. They just stand out, so you wouldn't do it. I did, by the way, also as well you talk about your LowePro. I've got two, so I bought a bigger one that had two straps for the backpack. Mm-hmm. What I use that one for, that's got enough for my laptop, so I can fit the MacBook Pro, the 17-inch in the slot in the back.
Wow.
That goes right back. And then I can fit the Canon XA10 video camera, the Canon 60D and the lenses in there.
Wow.
And my head, when I'm traveling, I can fit all my camera things in that. So I don't mind that because that's on my back, because I'm not going to be using it most of the time, but it's sort of for traveling. Mm-hmm. And then when I get to the other place, the other LowePro's in my suitcase. So when I get to where I'm going, I'll take that one out and put the camera in that, because I think that was had the 60D. Yeah, I think the last time I went, I took the 60D and the Canon XA10 with me. I don't know why. I took the XA10 because the 60D wasn't that good for video on the run. Okay. So that's why I took the other one on there. But I'll tell you what, I'm getting more into it, so I think I'm going to get back into doing some more video. So I bought this on the weekend.
Oh, 8 terabyte. Western Digital.
Yep, that's to put into the Drobo. So to give me
8. You got an 8. You said, I remember distinctly you saying 6, not 8.
Well, it was $150 deal for 2 terabytes. So I thought, yeah, I will want. I'm not going to not use it. It's not like, oh, I'll never. I remember in the early days, one of my early computers. Oh, it's got a 20 megabyte hard drive. I'll never use that.
My first one was 30.
Yeah, now I've got over 20 terabytes, and still don't think that's. And that's what the only thing when you do video. Yeah, you might not need it, but you need a lot to store all this thing. So I'm sort of still panicking a bit because I thought, how do you back these things up? Because this is the backup, and then it does. But if all the drives fail, you're in trouble.
Well, if all of them fail simultaneously, though, hopefully you could unplug it and plug it into something else and back up over to that if you really had a problem. I mean, you might have a tense, day where you only have a single backup.
But the thing is with the Drobo, how the Drobo works, so like there's 5 hard disks in there, and I've got them 5 3 terabyte ones in there. But the way it does it distributes the files over the 5 drives.
So it treats it like an array?
Yeah. And so, but one of the advantages, you can have 1 disk redundancy or 2.
Okay.
So you can say, I've got 1. So if you have 1 drive fail, you take that out, put a new one, and it rebuilds it. It keeps about 4 terabytes, 3 or 4 terabytes, to do that. So you can lose 1 drive, put another one in, it'll rebuild it. So the
okay, so you could take out the 3, put in the 8, and it would rebuild what's on the 3 on the 8, and you'd still have all the space.
Yeah, I don't have to do anything. I'll just take that 3 out. It knows what was on there, and it just rebuilds it and puts that back on there, and then it keeps a bit extra for the other ones. But then if I put say 3 8s in, I could change it to 2 disk redundancy. So if 2 disks failed at the same time, I would still be safe.
Well, there
but
you
even
go.
then, what I'm wanting to do is take the 3 out, put the 8 in, and then I've bought myself also the little what they call the toaster.
Yeah.
So you can put that into the USB, so I can with those ones because they haven't failed yet. So I'll back things up on that. So I'll have some sort of backup. So I thought like even my photos will go on 1 3 terabyte. Then some videos as I do. Well, at least I'll have some sort of backup because some of it's rubbish. But I'd like to keep all my footage. I don't like throwing a lot of the footage away on that. But hey, then I can do something more with it. So well, that's what that was my justification. So it was a very expensive weekend because it was that. I also bought that. And I also bought a 2 terabyte SSD.
Oh, okay, for your Mac.
For the MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
And so I'm ever so proud of myself because on when was it? On Sunday night? Yes, Sunday night. I got the thing out and formatted it. And then I thought I didn't have the time, so I waited till Monday. Then I unscrewed the MacBook on Monday night and replaced the drive in. I had all the little screwdrivers and the right Torx bit screwdrivers to get in there, so very easy to get in there. So I took the old drive out, but what we were supposed to be able to do is it was saying, I'll just clone your other one first. So I stuck it in the machine, hit the button, clone, so it's where then it failed.
Oh.
It wouldn't copy files from my existing one to the other one was writing okay, the new drive was fine, but it just said it. So I thought, well, no, I won't bother with that. I'll just format the drive with the Mac operating system, took that one out, put it into the MacBook, and I was really amazed how quick it just booted up. It just went, like it was used to take 4 minutes to boot up. It took about 20 seconds. And I thought, well, maybe it's because it's just a virgin drive with nothing on it. So
you did that, about 15 minutes before the show, right?
Well, I don't use that for this one anyway. But
okay.
But what I did with so I started up the thing Control R, so it starts in the reboot mode, and picked the restore from a time machine backup, and I had that one plugged in and let it churn away. It took 8 hours to do the restore. Because it's only a USB. That was the thing. That was the slow part doing it from it was. So the SSD was fast enough, but it was the slow thing going from the USB. It was only USB 2 because it's a 2011 MacBook Pro. But everything came back, and I was just amazed. It was just like it was before, perfect, apart from, now if I click Final Cut Pro on that, it opens up in about 2 seconds or 3 seconds. It's opening up, whereas before it used to take about 30 to 60 seconds before you said, have I clicked the button? And then it would come up, Final Cut, the logo, but then it would take ages to open it up. So I'm really impressed with that. So it was a good investment, because the machine is still, I think, from a 2011 machine, but still quite good, because you can't get the 17-inch ones now. So.
No, I could see it loading faster whenever you're actually loading a program, but I'm wondering, for instance, if you were taking, like I do every week, take a hour-long audio file and do processing on it. Obviously, the file would load in faster, because, I have a USB connection to this digital audio recorder here, and it takes a bit for it to be, what happens is it loads in fairly rapidly, but then it takes a bit to process the hour of audio and give you the whole wave, that's, you're seeing the whatever you call those waves and stuff on the meter, and takes a while to do that. But then whenever you process something, now I'm doing it in seconds now, because I found out one problem I was having. But what I'm wondering about is, will the actual processing time for, say, an hour's worth of audio be any faster? Because the drive wouldn't make it any faster unless it's swapping, unless it swaps to the drive while it's doing it, and then that would be faster. So maybe it could actually speed it up.
Yeah, I think I've just noticed, especially on that laptop, because if there's video footage on that drive, but the number one thing I try to make sure, whatever the video footage should be on a different drive other than the one that's driving the machine. And on this machine, it's on the Drobo, but that's on the Thunderbolt connection, which gives you quite a good speed. It's not an SSD, but it gives you close enough to that speed that you don't notice that it's on an external hard drive. So I don't have any problem with that. And with this, it's got the Fusion drive, which the Fusion drive is just a standard drive with a flash memory built into it. So it pretends it's sort of like a bit of an SSD, doesn't it? Sort of just caches it and speeds it up a little bit. But I've been really happy with those Fusion drives, so never had a problem with that. So that's okay.
Well, I know whenever I first bought this system here that I had an older laptop with an i5 processor and, that type of thing in it. And, of course, USB 2 on that. Well, whenever I got the 4 terabyte drive down here, which is USB 3, I found that copying from the laptop all the stuff that I wanted to copy and back up. And then what I did, I did from the laptop onto the 4 terabyte drive, and then back from that onto the 2 terabyte drive that's in the new system here, to get everything on there. So I would have 2 separate backups, because I had pictures and video that I was just beside myself because I hadn't had a chance to back it up. The flash drives were not big enough really to do a good backup or anything at that point. And so, I was excited to get the stuff backed up. It took, an hour almost to back up from the older laptop to the 4 terabyte drive. But then whenever I hooked the 4 terabyte drive up to the new system, I was using USB 3 on both of them, and it took like 5 minutes.
Amazing.
I'm just like, goodness. And I figured twice as fast, sure, but not 20 times as fast. I really didn't expect that.
Yeah, well, with just putting that SSD in, they show you on there that, you do your speed test and whatever, bits per minute do they do it in? I forget, but it shows you the standard Apple drive, which goes to 43 or something. And then when you put the SSD, it's 379 or something. That it's the top, because it's just chalk and cheese. It's incredible. I just don't know how I put up with it for so long and didn't think about it earlier. But I thought it was 769, I think, the hard drive, but well worth it when you think, well, there was nothing wrong with the machine. And I thought that was the only thing that was sort of a bit disappointing with. I never used to shut it down properly because it would take forever, and I know it would take 10 minutes nearly to boot it up again. But now I said if it's on within 30 seconds, and I thought, gee, that's acceptable for me. I don't mind. Some people might want it quick, but I thought, no, that's acceptable. Up and going in 30 seconds from a cold start. I think that's quite more than acceptable. So
one of the things that I've found that with older systems that, normally, of course, you can't use it for your all-purpose system or something. Now, I mean, the one you have is still completely viable, but I have one over here. It actually was bad for overheating. It's an old Dell, and like you said, the i5 processor. And so it's a little slower, but it was kind of bad about overheating. So we got one of those USB things you plug in that vents underneath it, has a little pad you can lay it on and vents underneath it. But the fan keeps coming on. I mean, it's always done this ever since it was new. It's just really loud. And so it's completely useless for any type of audio recording or anything like that. And, it's just constantly this big old roar from this fan going all the time. But one of the things you can do with an older, actually obsolete computer is you can actually specialize with it. I mean, you can make it for a specific purpose. And so one of the things that I had that computer doing, I have a little device that is a cassette player with a USB connector on it. And so if you find old cassettes, and I do have quite a few old ones, all I did, I completely formatted the thing, got rid of everything, put Windows 10 on it like that, completely streamlined. Everything's fine. And then I downloaded Audacity. And so Windows 10 and Audacity is pretty much all it has on it. So it's not clogged up with everyday surfing online or anything. It's not even online. I haven't had it online. And so, except to download Audacity, that was the only time I did. But then I could plug the thing in, and whenever you heard the Mo, and Hammy thing, the Mo and Hammy show. Anyway, I took the cassette, put it into that little device, plugged it into that laptop, just set up somewhere else away from my main system and got all this out of my way, and did a transfer and made a MP3 file out of it. It just does a direct, I did it there. Since I did it into Audacity, I was able to save it to WAV myself to start with. And then, and then I worked on the audio in Audacity, and then I set up for the whole podcast show that I did send out. But that computer is perfect for a specialized purpose like that. You might have, hundreds of cassettes from the good old days. You might still have them. You might have gotten rid of them. You might find one somewhere. Family members, they say, well, there's something on this cassette. I don't know what it is. And it turns out it's like the kids playing around, talking on a tape recorder whenever they were like 8 or 10 or something. And so you can have this little workstation where that's what you're doing with it, is going through all the old family cassettes and seeing what you can save out of the audio, because occasionally you can get something reasonable. Also, should this thing crash, this main computer crash, I told you I was doing all of my actual podcasting on a 128 gig flash drive, which I do back up, to the 4 terabyte drive and stuff. But if this were to crash and I have to get a show out, and I'm up against the deadline, I can pull that flash drive real quick, put it in this, Audacity's in there. I have all the pieces I need, components, and I can use it to put out the show. So, it's nice to have, but with these older computers, while I would never use that for audio recording because it has such a noisy fan, I would never use it for surfing the internet because it's slow, and things like that. I could totally use it for a backup computer to make the show, or I can use it for that other purpose, going through the old family cassettes and seeing what kind of audio you can rescue, special purpose.
That's why I like, when the things I buy, I don't like buying the one I need. Because like when I bought that MacBook, it was the biggest one you could get, biggest screen, the highest memory, the highest processor, the i7, highly spec'd up, that I didn't need, but that's really paid off, because it was, as I said, 2011 I got it. It's nearly 2018 getting onto that, and it's still going strong. It's still fast enough for all the things. It's not much different to the other one. So if I'd got the lesser one, yes, it might have been a bit harder, but now Apple's got rid of the DVD drive. It's got a DVD writer drive in it, so that's an advantage. It's got the 17-inch, which Apple got away with the 17-inch. They solder all memory in where you didn't on that. So I took the 8 out and put my own 16 in at a much cheaper price. And I don't think you replace the hard drives in the newer ones. So it's still really paying off, and they just make them so solid. Like it's the aluminium chassis, one of those. It's not a plastic one, so it's still doing a good job. And like you said, if I did this show on that, it will do it, but the fan's just too noisy. The processor gets too hot, and it just gets too noisy for that. And when I opened it up, I could see the fan was quite dirty. It's amazing all the dirt it gets from in there. And I thought, oh, gee, clean that out because of all the dust that's gone through the gee, it does pick up a lot of mess in there. But yeah, I always think that the machines, if you don't put too much on them, they're quite good for doing that. It's just what slows most machines down is all the rubbish you get. And I don't know about you, but when I was just a Windows person, what I used to do, I used to make a point, was every Christmas, after Christmas, between that Christmas and New Year break, I'd always format my hard drives, reformat them. And what I used to do, I used to back up the data, and I never backed up never backed up the whole machine, just the data, and then I reloaded the program. So I'd say, what do I need? Then all I'd have would say Office, and I'd have the data, and I'd only load the things back if I needed them, because you'd find with doing that, if you just did a restore, you restore the same rubbish. But what I used to do, this is all the data, these are all the programs. So I'll just say, oh, I haven't got that, reload that, because you found there's hundreds and hundreds of programs you usually have loaded up that's causing you the issue, because it's that slow. It's doing something that you don't realize it's doing. And sometimes when you restore from a backup, you've just restored the problem that you had before. Whereas it's always good to sometimes start on a fresh machine and then just have your data.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Now, me taking the time to do that is probably a completely different thing, but that might be something that I get more into whenever I retire. It's just that I have software on here that I have configured in a certain way, that's doing exactly what I want it to do, and I would have to reconfigure the different softwares and do different things that work together, and so I find myself kind of not wanting to get into that as long as it's working. But as far as backing up, yes. But as far as okay, and that's another thing. I was having trouble with those Windows updates and things.
Yes.
Well, that seems to, a couple updates ago, they seem to have actually solved the problem, and so my computer's been working really, really well, and I haven't had any trouble with the crashing and stuff and not booting back up that I was having before. It's just they really, really ruined me there for a while. It was kind of bad.
Yeah, well, like I was just saying with the backups and that, yes, that was a few years ago where programs weren't nowhere near as complicated. You just had it on and you used it. And it was before there was a lot of internet action and a lot of other things you could do. So what else was you going to do? You backed it up. You had plenty of time to do that, to do all your things. But now there's so many different things, like you say, like doing this show. If I had to reconfigure everything, I've got to put all that back. Because, yes, I've got the Wirecast, but then I have to build all the shots, build that, and have I got time before we do another show to do that? So that's where and plus machines have become so much better for installing and uninstalling things that you don't usually get that conflict. Remember the old days, well, not so long back, you delete something or uninstall it, and one of the device drivers you've uninstalled would wreck the rest of your machine, and because it would sort of piggyback on something else. You take that one out, but it was a crucial thing in something else, and so you had to reload all your other ones to find out what it was, and it was always used to be a nightmare. Don't have that same problem these days.
Do you remember setting dip switches?
Yeah, oh God, yeah, that's right. You even had to go into the machine. Yes.
Yes. I mean, it was a dual inline position switch, dip switch. Anyway, so what happened is you'd get a new modem or whatever. Back whenever I was running a BBS, a bulletin board system, before the internet was available, it was just a dial-up system set up on a local computer at somebody's house. You dial that number, you could get on one person at a time, and then you might, if you had 5 separate phone lines, there were nodes you could set up, have 5 people on there who could chat, or something. It was very expensive because you need a separate phone line for each person coming in. of course, I had a system with a single line. Well, you get a new modem. At that point, modems were 300, 1200, 2400 baud, and it was all text based and, all that, and ASCII characters going by. Well, you get a new modem and you plug the thing in. I remember the first time I heard the words plug and play. Oh, it's coming. Oh. I'm like, right. I mean, because you had to open the computer up. You had to, what you do, you open it up, you put something in the slot, and then you turn the thing on with the cover off of it, and then you see if it'll recognize it. No, it doesn't. Okay, well, try this, and then you do this, and okay, well, put this in your config sys, put this in your auto exec bat, do this dip switch, do the one in the middle. Okay, so now if you did this dip switch, then put this in your auto config bat, and then okay, it's like 2 hours later, it works. Yeah, it works. I'm a genius. Okay, this is great. Well, the idea that you could just plug something in and it would work, that is so taken for granted today. And I think it's the best thing ever, but it was slogging along in the old days was kind of tough.
And a lot of the things that you had, that had a card that had to be put into the machine because you didn't have anything to connect it to if you didn't put the card in for it to connect to. And it was always like, before we had USB ports, you had the parallel ports and the serial ports, and they were so awkward to get things like just to plug a printer in to get that to work. I remember a friend of mine who had a business, and she had this big Epson printer. I think the big 17-inch printer, was it? You remember the big? Is it 17-inch? You know how you knew an A4, and then there was was it 30-inch? Something, a big wide one. Business had the big wide sheets on there. Yeah, and we had to set it up, so we configured it all, and she ran her report. So it's a 20-page report, and there's all these huge big reams of paper coming out. And there was just a little 1-inch by 1-inch block on each bit of paper. And we'd configured it to the size. So each big page was shrunk down to a 1-inch by 1-inch square. And we laughed like anything. They recognized the page breaks properly, but all we did was print it.
That's weird. Because I remember the page breaks would just be completely off if you didn't have it printed up right. Well, that was amazing that the page breaks worked correctly.
But you had to set that before you started. You had to reset your printer, set top of page, top of line. So it said, well, I'm at the top of it. I know that's the thing. But the software, you had to set that in the machine. And we laughed like anything, saying we couldn't even read the stuff that was on it. I said, gee, that's doing a real good job putting all that. And that was only text, because it would, if you had something like any graphic sort of thing, it would take about an hour going over.
And make the paper real shiny and wet,
You think it's going to break through if it goes over so much, but it was. But once you configured it, you thought you was the best thing out, because you said, I made that work. No,
yeah, well, more importantly, the customer thought you were the best thing going. How smart you were because you knew. My favorite printer of my entire life was a 40-column printer that printed on cash register tape. It was the coolest thing ever, because a Commodore 64 had a 40-column display. We were doing some heavy-duty programming. Again, this is in the early 80s. We were doing some heavy-duty programming on the Commodore 64 before we even got into the IBM compatibles and stuff. And I found a printer that would print, again, 40 columns. You plugged it in. It worked right away. I didn't have to do anything real special with it. And it was a little small thing. It was about the size of a calculator. And for that day, that was really something, because printers were just these huge old blocky things. And what would happen is I would be writing a program, and I learned how to send the actual program itself to the printer. You could port things to the printer by opening this. I think 8 was the, comma 8, I think was the code for the printer. And so you would send this to the parallel port, obviously, and then through this printer. And so I could print up what I was seeing on the screen for a computer program. And then what I would do, I would print up and I'd have his cash register tape with whatever program I was debugging at the time. And I would put it in my back pocket and I'd go to work. And then I am sitting on a machine. Letters are going by at 50 a minute. From memory, I'm looking at an address and then I am keying where this letter goes. I am listening to the radio or, whatever on headphones and debugging my computer program all at the same time.
Oh,
and so I'm just like it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, and then I'll miss a letter. Oh shoot. And then then I can't get back into it because I figured out why I'm there because I could visually see what I was doing. Then I go, to break. And then I go and I make notations on my little cash register tape. It's like, yes, and then you go back and, work on it whenever you get home. But I might come up with 2 or 3 separate things in the code that I recognized that I needed to change. And then I would go home and implement those changes. And yeah, that's what I was after, but I found I could do that from memory. It was almost like it was going from my eyes to my fingers, keying the mail accurately, listening to the radio. And then while I'm doing it, I'm debugging my program. I love that printer, though. It was just the perfect thing for those little program notations on a 40-column computer.
I used to do the programming back then, but then I got to the stage where they used to do it because there was nothing out there then. So if you didn't do programming yourself, your computer was just a glorified typewriter. Well, it wasn't even that if you didn't have the printer connected. It wasn't even a typewriter. Mm-mm. It was just a dead box where, well, if you were lucky, you might have something that was useless that came with it, but nearly always you had to have a book and write your own programs to create a database or something. If you wanted an accounting system, you had to create your own thing. And but it was fun to do that. But then when you got to the stage where, you can do this, you can spend hundreds of hours doing this, and it still might not be quite right, or you can get it for $1 or something like that and do it 10. So you gave up because when Windows came in and you just couldn't possibly do that. And I think there was heard somewhere saying before in the early days when Windows 3.11 was out, there used to be 2 people who was in charge of the code who wrote it or did that or something. He said, but now there's something like 100,000 people involved in the code of Windows. It's just so you just can't do anything. You just couldn't do anything. It's just too mind-blowing, isn't it, really, unless you happen to be a outright genius.
Yeah, but the bloated code that people write these days, I remember with so little memory in our computers, we had to write really tight code, and then we had some program compactors and some different things. They would compact it all out to where we could actually fit more in there, and then we'd be running out of space and everything. I did my programming I was doing was mostly with my youngest brother, who he was on the podcast a few weeks ago whenever you and I didn't have a show, and had him on there talking about computer security and home security and stuff like that. But anyway, our forte was I am a reader of manuals. He is a very intuitive person. So,
okay, just pick it up.
So between the two of us, he would come up with things just in his mind. Hey, what if we tried this? And then I am actually poring over the programmer's reference guide, which is about 2 inches thick, and just reading it for leisure, and so between me looking at actual details, and then sometimes I would say, well, they said over here that you can do this thing called a poke, and you can do this, and you can actually poke to the screen and things like that. And he goes, oh, wow, then we could do this. And so he would make this dramatic leap based on information I would give him, about something we could do. And then, so between him being so intuitive and me being so bookish, we actually got some pretty nice programs written, before it was over with. It was pretty cool. We ended up getting a mention in the magazine on, America Online. The original incarnation of that was called Quantum Link, and it was for Commodore 64 computers. Then later on, they invited everybody in and made it America Online. Well, they had a magazine they put out back then, and so we actually got printed up in the magazine for a program, hey, the way we wrote and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool. Look, here I am on the magazine.
Back then, they would do because people would really love that because you'd get the magazine and you go, I'll try that, and you write it, and because it'd give you the pages and pages, so you just key it in there, and you got really excited. I remember one of the programs I used to love was DBase 3, and it was a database, but then you could write code for that to make it do all strange things, and I did that for work, and because they did it, and I really enjoyed that. And when it went to these other ones that just did it, yeah, it did better things, but it wasn't half as much fun as figuring it out. And it was so basic. The screen was horrible. It was no flashy screen. It was just DOS prompt. You typed in a command. It gave you what you wanted out of the database. And then you'd do that. You'd go to an entry screen. You'd enter all, but you'd do all these different things. But it was so easy to manipulate the data, whereas these days it's a bit harder. Maybe it's not harder, maybe it's harder for me because I've sort of lost touch with it, but I'm sure there's other similar sort of things where you can get the raw data and manipulate it yourself, but I just never got into that later on. But
I found out last year that all the batch file commands, the DOS commands and all that stuff still work in Windows 10. I couldn't believe it. I wrote a backup program for the podcasting information to go. I was backing it up straight from the flash drive to both the 4 terabyte external and the C drive on the main computer. And I wrote a batch file to do that, and we'll see if this will work. And I put that in there and I fired it up, and buddy, it works just like it did back in the good old days. I was one of the people that thought that, I suddenly realized I wasn't as obsolete as what I thought I was. but at the same time, I was the person that came from a Commodore 64 where you had to load a program to even format a disk. And then I thought DOS was the amazing thing because you could just say format, and then in whatever drive you wanted and stuff like that. And the copy command is just amazing. You can pipe stuff anywhere. It's like a recording studio where you're bussing things over here and bussing things over there. The copy command was just amazing. And there's just so many different things you could do. And I just loved every minute of it. Come back to Windows. And I knew I was going to be getting me a Windows computer for Christmas. So about 3 months before, I found a Windows 3.1 manual at a rummage sale. And I read that manual. And then I'd never had a graphic environment type of thing. And then, so whenever I got the computer, I just sat down and started using it. Because I'm a manual reader. What can I say? I'm kind of weird.
But you say like batch files, so I used to love them. They would, like you said, they just did so much. Like I used to do a computer course where we used to sell the computers, and I got stuck doing the computer course for the customers. So each Friday night I'd have about 6 to 8 people in a classroom thing showing them about when Windows 3.11 came out and all that, and on all these we had a whole sort of set of Amstrad 486 computers to work off. All top of the range at that time.
Yeah, 486. I remember those.
Nothing but the best for my little school there was. Exactly. But the whole thing was that you'd get the customers in and doing all this thing on the computers, and they would stuff things up, delete the wrong things. But at the end of the day, I said, just type this in on the command line, type this in. There's what that... And it would erase all their rubbish they did and put it back to square one. So the next time the next person did, I knew when I told them to do something, that would be there. Mm-hmm. And then they couldn't wreck it. But I thought, you can't do that these days. You have to do a proper restore, don't you? Whereas that, you could just do in a quick batch file, and it would do it in 30 seconds. Do whatever you said erase all, because you knew you said, just here's a proper file. Now, overwrite that, erase everything else, and put that in there. And it just used to do it so damn quickly. And as I said, I might have to go and try that in my Windows one, see if I'll do the batch files work. So that's
I checked online, and yes, all the matter of fact, there's even more commands than there used to be, from what I understand. But you can write a batch file and it will do the things you want it to do. One of the things that I found very disturbing about Windows was that in DOS, I knew every single file on the computer because I put it there.
Yes, that's right.
And then you get to Windows, and there's these other files being created out of the operations you're doing. And when you got online, you don't even know what's being done to you. Things are constantly being put on your computer and stuff. I felt violated for the longest time. Because, what are you doing?
It was one of these programs that I got years ago called PC Tools.
Yes,
And
I totally had that. I had that.
Love that. And it had everything, but you'd say clean up. It said all rubbish you never use. So you could clean. This time it says all these, but it may be used by something else. You may want to delete it, but you may want to leave it in place so you never know. It just gives you suggestions, whereas back then, PC Tool, if it said that, you know it wasn't involved with anything else. And I used to love that program. It used to do all the great things that you wanted to do. It was just fantastic little thing. But these days, like you said, you think, oh, I don't know, there's 2 terabytes worth of stuff there, but I don't know. It must be something good.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I found something to replace that probably about a year or so ago, and I even found a version for my Android phone. It's called C Cleaner.
Oh, I did that.
CNET, .com, whatever it is. Yeah. Anyway, that's their patented cleaner or whatever like that. It's free, and I have trusted everything it does. And I just say, go ahead and kick it all out. And it does that. It cleans the registry. You can actually tell it to clean the registry. Gives you a chance to back up the registry just before it kicks out whatever entries you had. And I tell you what, I was having problems processing the audio on the podcast, and it was taking 45 minutes or something, sometimes an hour, to process one track of an hour-long audio for the podcast. And then all of a sudden I got a hold of that and ran that, and it took a little while to run it the first time. And ever since then, now I go ahead and run it before I do any processing. And we're talking less than 30 seconds, 45 seconds at the very, very most to process an hour's worth of audio, say if you're going to do compression or something like that. Just seconds now compared to an hour before. And it cleans all the junk out of it and makes it to do. And I always do that before I do the show here too, just to make sure everything's running smoothly.
What I always say to people when they're at work, they're running out of space, I said, number one thing, just go through your emails and get rid of all the attachments. Well, not so much just the attachments, but what a lot of people don't realize, get rid of all the threads, because you might have one email that's got a 2 megabyte file and people have been forwarded toing and froing the same thing, and you keep getting it. If you delete all the threads, it keeps the last version of it, which has all the history. So you don't need all the other 50 copies of it, but a lot of people, I'll need, so as long as you got the last one, it's got all the threads, all the other ones in there, but it deletes all the other emails. So it's amazing how much space you can get rid of when you're pushed. When you've got plenty of space, oh no, I'll just keep that. Like when I first got my Drobo, I was running out of space. I thought, I haven't got that much. I don't think, why have I got, nearly 8 terabytes worth of stuff? I shouldn't have that much. And what I didn't realize, I had all my raw data, and then when I was put it into Final Cut, one of the things Final Cut does, it says it creates an optimized file to edit quicker. So it does everything quicker. But you might have a 500 megabyte file with 500 megabytes worth of film data in there, and it will create a 6 gigabyte file of upgraded data, so it will do it quickly. So, but you're supposed to do is go through and delete them when you're finished. But I didn't. So I had 3 times the size on my hard disk was the same thing, but done about, and it doesn't delete the original. It doesn't delete your cut. It just means if you go back to that, it will just take 5 minutes by the time it loads in the original data, or rebuild it. If you want to go back to it, it'll rebuild that file again. It might take 5 minutes, but you can go back to it. So I didn't realize that at first, but it's just amazing when you I'm running out, I've got to look at something. You just look at things, whereas you don't bother usually, because that was one of the things I thought at first with the Premiere. It never does that. It's always just links to the original data. That's one of the things that makes Final Cut sometimes better with it, because it creates its own version of that. But then when you finish with it, you're supposed to delete it. But now I know that. My collection's getting not nowhere near as I said. It gave me an extra few years more on my drives I did have, so I was really pleased with it.
I found the same thing with Audacity filling up my flash drives, that I've got such a streamlined process on getting the audio podcast done that I don't even save the project. I just put it in there, do the processing, and so within 30 minutes of me loading everything in, it is actually uploaded and finished and ready to go. And so I don't even bother. I mean, if the power went off, I've still got the raw files on the flash drive. I mean, I still have the raw files on the recorder. So I'm not saving, because those project files are so much bigger than the actual finished file. I just go ahead and do the thing and then just leave Audacity open while I'm uploading the thing. So if anything were wrong with the file, or corrupted, because they check it when it gets there and everything, if it were corrupted, then all I'd have to do is export it again, but I don't close Audacity until it is completely uploaded and scheduled and ready to go. And of course, I've got it on there now at Libsyn. I've also got it on my hard drive, the finished file, and I've got the originals that would take me another half an hour to get the show ready again. So, I mean, so it's not such a problem that I'm wasting space with these big project files on there. There's just no reason to do it. Getting it done so quickly that I'm not even making the project file in the first place. I just export, upload it. Whenever I'm satisfied everything's happy, then I go ahead and close Audacity and don't even do the project file at all.
Well, gee, past 9 o'clock, so we've gone over our hour.
We did.
It's got before that, so that's gone quick. And so that was show number 56. So 56. Number 57 is next week on the 6th of September. Mm-hmm. But hopefully I should be available then, but I'm not too sure. There might be, so I might not be available. But so if I'm not there, I'm not coming.
That would be a good indication, yes.
Just so you see, I'm always there by at least 1:45 or 10:10. So if it's 5:50 and I'm not there, I'm not coming.
I usually, a couple of times it's happened before, I usually wait until about 5 after, or so, just to make sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But as I said, as long as you know that, because as I said, there's something coming up next week that I might not be able to make it back in time, but we'll soon see. I don't like missing the show because I'll quite enjoy doing it. So just rambling on for now. Anyway, thanks again. So thank you everyone for watching. Well, hopefully some people are watching, and we'll catch you again. So bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening. Links for a free subscription, feedback, and everything else we do is at holbrooknewmedia.com. You can find all things Geoff Blanchard at geoffblanchard.com.